Hey, this is Joe with Grow It, Build It, and today I'm going to tell you all about butterfly weed. So a lot of people like to grow flowers to just make their yards look nicer, the aesthetics, the beauty. Other people are trying to save the bees and insects, and then there's some that are trying to keep the monarch butterflies from going extinct. Well, I have a plant that is going to help you achieve all of these goals. It's butterfly weed. This is a flower that can look great in an ornamental manicured flower bed, a wildflower microperry garden, just about anywhere. And so what this video is going to be all about is butterfly weed. We're going to cover what it is, why you should grow it, how to grow it and identify it, how to germinate the seed and save seed, what wildlife it can bring to your yard, and some garden uses. So let's dive a little deeper and have a look. So butterfly weed is a wildflower that is native to North America, eastern North America specifically. The scientific name is Asclepias Tuberosa, and it's a milkweed, as Asclepias is the milkweed genus. This is a perennial that lives a long time, blooms bright orange blossoms in summertime for about 4 weeks, and it occurs naturally in prairies, meadows, roadsides, clearings. The first time I ever saw it was hiking. It was in a power line cut, actually. Why you should grow this plant. The first reason to grow this plant is that pollinators love it. Butterflies, bees, and the occasional hummingbird will frequent the blooms. It's also the host for the monarch butterfly, so they will come lay their eggs on here and you'll get caterpillars if you have enough. 3, it is a native plant, so it's co-evolved to grow in eastern North America. It is disease resistant. It's tough. Once you establish this plant, it is very hardy and tough. The next reason is that the foliage looks great from spring until frost. The bushy foliage looks nice before blooming, the orange blossoms are beautiful, and then the seed pods that are kind of vertical and erect on this one in the fall, they look really cool too. It's also pretty easy to grow from seed, and it's tough and drought tolerant once it is established. If you guys are liking this, give me a thumbs up too. It helps out my videos and my channel quite a bit. I'd appreciate it. Before I move on, I want to let you know that this entire video exists in article format at our website. I will link to it below, but it has all the information you're seeing here, plus some more, and some links to university studies on some of the stuff I'm saying. So you might want to check that out or just save it for later. So butterfly weed is a little more compact than other milkweeds. It's going to grow 1 to 2 feet tall, and it'll spread about 1 to 2 feet wide. It prefers full sun and medium to dry moisture, but it can go in partial sun, but it will not get as big or bloom as much. In fact, my in-laws have this, and their plants are a little smaller than mine and not quite as showy. For soil types, it can go sandy or loamy. That's what it would like, but you can grow it in very compacted soil like clay as long as it drains well. That's the key. The soil has to drain. This plant does not like to be in moist areas. Butterfly weed can be a little bit slower to establish than other milkweeds from seed. It's mainly because of the root, which is a taproot or a tuber. And how fast this will happen depends on your soil. The more compact the soil, the slower it will be to develop, and I'll show some examples of that later on. If you put butterfly weed in its preferred growing conditions, it's not going to need any kind of special care, no fertilizer, nothing. No supplemental water usually, because it likes drought, or it tolerates drought. Alright, so to identify this plant. Although it's in the milkweed genus, butterfly weed is much different than common milkweed or swamp milkweed. Butterfly weed will have light green to purple stems that have small hairs all up and down them. Near the top of your plant, you're going to have a little bit of branching where more flowers will come in, and it's going to create like an orange mass in full bloom. The leaves differ from other milkweeds quite a bit. Where common milkweed has huge leaves, and even swamp milkweed has long leaves that come to a point, butterfly weed leaves are very small and rounded. They're really like, I don't know, 1/2 inch wide by 2-3 inches long. And the root system is much different in that this is a taproot plant. Common milkweed spreads via rhizome roots all over your yard. Butterfly weed will not do that. It will only spread via self-seeding. So that's kind of cool. The orange flowers are in what I like to call the milkweed style. It's just very unique. You know, when I first came across this plant hiking 10 years ago, it's the first time I ever really paid attention to a milkweed flower, and I was quite taken with it. The petals that stick up and then down, it's just neat to look at. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like you want to admire it for the evolutionary design as well as its beauty. But the blooming period on butterfly weed will last around a month, starting in early summer to midsummer, which is a pretty standard bloom duration of a month or so. All right, so how to grow butterfly weed from seed. Butterflyweed is pretty easy to grow from seed. Official sources are going to tell you that it needs to go through a cold treatment of 30 days or be winter sowed. The cold moist stratification will improve the germination rate, and you should definitely consider doing it. Definitely do it if you're watching this video and it's the winter, because winter sowing is the easiest thing in the world. I'll put cards in the top right for videos on how to cold moist stratify seeds or to winter sow them. I'll also have step-by-step guide linked down below for a quick reference if you want to read that. But I do have to tell you that I have germinated butterflyweed without stratifying it. It just took 2 to 3 weeks to sprout if I remember correctly. You can soak the seed overnight before you plant it too to help accelerate that. But planting depth for butterflyweed seeds should be just underneath the soil. What I normally do when I'm germinating any milkweed seed is I'll scatter 3 to 5 seeds per cell, then I'll lightly cover it with a handful of potting soil, so it's just like a dusting, and then I'm going to press a few more seeds into the soil on top and make sure they have good contact. Then I'll only water by misting it with a pump sprayer or a spray bottle, just so I don't wash everything out or to the side or something like that. This is what seedlings will look like right after germination, and then here's what they look like a couple of weeks later. They're pretty distinct. And while I was separating some seedlings to increase the number of plants I was going to get, I came across a good shot of the root here. So you can see what the taproot is starting to form here on this one. By autumn, you can save seeds from butterflyweed, just like all the other milkweeds. What you want to look for is when the pods are just starting to open up, you want to collect them, and then you can separate the chaff from the seed. If you don't want to check the pods every day to find out when they're opening, you can put twist ties or rubber bands around the pods to help hold them closed so that the seed doesn't just blow away. It works pretty well, and sometimes it'll actually make it so that the pod never fully opens, just kind of cracks open, and it's easy to get the seed then. But in order to save seed cleanly without a big mess for butterflyweed or any other milkweed, what you can do is hold the pod firmly in one hand, pinch just above the seeds, and then peel the top of the pod down like you would a banana. Start grabbing the feathery fluff and pulling it out. And you'll have to do this several times until you can get the central core where all the seeds are actually attached to. Once you've discarded that, now you have nothing but seeds. You can open up your pod and just dump the seed out. Once seeds have fully dried, you can store them in a Ziploc bag or an envelope for a couple of years in a cool, dry place. Just make sure they're not in the sun and they don't get too hot. You should be able to germinate them, 2-year-old seed, no problem. Okay, so I had mentioned that butterflyweed was kind of slow to establish from seed depending on your soil conditions. And to give you examples of that, I've built wildflower gardens in the past that had very fertile soil. This is one that I did. This is May, and you can see there's nothing there. I germinated seeds and planted them out very early, and by September I had blooming milkweed plants, or butterflyweed plants. So that can be done. This was very, very fertile, loose, well-draining soil. To contrast that with my own backyard, it's very compact back there. And I didn't even plant out my first seedlings until like August of 2017. And a year later, this is what the plants look like. So they're not very big. Fast forward a couple of years and I've got multi-stems, but they're still not fully grown, or what I would call fully grown. But then last year in 2020, they're very full. And so that was basically their 3rd year in the ground, you would say. And before I forget, this is what butterflyweed looks like when it's emerging. It is one of the last flowers to emerge in the spring, so you have to be patient. But it will come through after everything else has been emerged for a week or so, at least. So be patient. For wildlife that you can attract with it, the main thing is going to be pollinators. It's going to be everything from butterflies to the occasional hummingbird and a lot of bees. Bees are the main pollinators I see on my plants. All shapes and sizes, although bumblebees are the easiest to notice for sure. And like most milkweed plants, pollinators just can't resist the urge to visit them. As soon as the temperatures warm up in the morning, you'll see bees start arriving and other pollinators as well. Now for monarch butterflies, this is a milkweed. It is a larval host for monarch butterfly caterpillars. If you have enough plants, they will come lay their eggs. Maybe not this year, but eventually they will if the monarchs pass through. If you're really trying to attract monarchs, you need to have more than one plant. My general rule is to have at least 3 specimens of a species if I'm trying to get wildlife for that species. So grow at least 3 butterfly weeds and hope for the best, or grow more and you'll probably have more caterpillars. But I regularly have caterpillars all over these as well as my other milkweeds. There's a couple other insects that will visit that are more pest-like, although they're still part of the food chain. The first one I want to talk about is milkweed beetles. Milkweed beetles are these little orange guys you see here. They are going to eat the seeds. So if you're trying to save seed from your plants, you're going to want to discard the pods that have these on them and just throw them somewhere else. The other thing I want to mention is tussock moths. Tussock moths will defoliate butterflyweed and any other milkweed. Don't worry, your plants will probably come back. I've never lost one to them, at least I have not. However, the birds are going to come eat the caterpillars eventually. But it's weird. It almost looks like you have like little Muppets crawling over your caterpillars. They're so hairy. One other pest you're probably going to deal with is aphids. These little orange bugs on the stem of this milkweed. They're a problem. They suck sap out of the plant and hurt it, but they generally don't kill it. The best way to get rid of them is just to squish them or spray them off with a hose, I've found. All right, so let's talk about deer and rabbits. Deer I have found to avoid butterflyweed for me. Your case might be different, but it hasn't been a problem. Rabbits, on the other hand, will eat young seedlings and tender foliage that emerges in the spring. Once the plants get a little more mature, they seem to leave them alone. So if you're planting out seedlings, you definitely want to try to protect them with liquid fence. I'll link to liquid fence concentrate below that I use, and someday I'm going to have to make a video on how to use it. So look for cards or down below when I eventually make that video, because liquid fence is the most reliable way to stop deer and rabbits from eating your plants. Okay, let's talk about garden uses. Butterflyweed is probably the most versatile of the milkweeds that you can grow. And that's because it can go in full sun or part shade, medium moisture or dry moisture. But the main reason is that it's small. It's 1 to 2 feet tall. So it can do well in like a meadow or a prairie, a border garden or something like that. But it also looks pretty good in a formal manicured flower bed. So you could keep it in the front yard or the backyard, or both, whatever you think. The multiple stems end up giving it kind of a shrub-like appearance. And it is herbaceous in that it's going to die back every winter, but because it's compact and bushy, it doesn't seem to get damaged by the wind ever. So other plants may get knocked down by strong winds. This one seems to do much better, mainly just because of its size, I think. So you can get very creative with how you would use this. And if you're growing it from seed, you're probably going to have more plants than you originally intended. So find good uses for them or share them. Okay, let's review. So butterflyweed, it is a short, compact milkweed with bright orange flowers that last about a month. It likes full sun and well-drained soil. It's absolutely great for pollinators. It's great for attracting monarch butterflies. It's pretty easy to grow from seed. It is drought tolerant, and it is versatile in the garden. Okay? I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I liked making this one because this is probably my favorite of the milkweeds. But give me a thumbs up. It helps me out quite a bit. And take a look around our channel. You might find some other videos that you enjoy because we do a lot of these plant profiles. We're mainly a gardening and vegetable type, well, more flower channel than a vegetable. But anyways, I hope you guys had a good one and you guys enjoy your day.